Hello, hello. A very, very happy International Women's Day. A very, very happy International Women's Day. Very excited to be here. I'm Baldwin Trott. I am a mentor and I'll be the publisher of the next Women Leading book, Women Leading in Our New World. Very excited to be here with three of my authors that are in the book. There are 18 of us all together. But today is a special day and it is Break the Bias for International Women's Day. So thank you so much for watching. This is what we're here for. We're part of the movement and we're really grateful that you're joining and listening. I'm just going to introduce my beautiful guests that have joined me this morning. And to my left, right, I don't know which way that works on StreamYard. Eva Maria Hunt, thank you so much for joining. Hello, hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Aylesbury.
Nice to be here.
Oh, bless you. Great to see you from Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire. Eva is a soul alchemist, connecting strong women with their soul to love and thrive. So this is Eva Hunt. Underneath Eva is Gill McKay. Gill McKay, hello from lovely leafy Ealing.
Good morning.
Great to have you join us.
Great to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's great to see you. Gill is a neuroscience-based business coach, speaker, and author. And we have also Adelle Martin, who is an executive midlife coach. And Adelle has about to launch an app, but your absolute niche is menopause, isn't it? Coming out of menopause and that midlife challenge. So amazing to have you three here. We are going to have in a minute, I absolutely know because I can feel it in my bones, two others join us. That's Asma Begum, who is the charity founder for Soul Sisters Empowering People. Every book I publish, I offer support to a charity. And I am blessed to be the patron and trustee of Soul Sisters. So Asma will be joining us because she's also writing in the book. And also, hopefully, Teresa Corso from Melbourne, Australia. Hopefully, will screech in. And obviously, we've got Toffee the dog. She doesn't want to miss out either because she knows what's going on.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry. She's got something to say. She's like, well, where's my introduction?
Exactly.
Oh, so very, very special day. These days come around every year now so quickly. And part of me thinks, well, what have I done in the last year? And then part of me thinks, well, what am I going to do next year? And then there's a whole message about International Women's Day, which is so profound. It's almost like hard to explain. But I'd like to go over to you guys, and I'd like to start with the topic this year of the 2022 International Women's Day, which is breaking the bias. So where is bias suffered for women? Where is it experienced? What happens? Where does it raise its ugly head? How severe is it? So I'd like to ask my three guests this morning of their experiences, where they have experienced bias and how they manage to overcome it. Let's start with Gill McKay.
Yeah, thank you. Lovely to open the debate this morning. I was talking to my daughters about this last night. So I have young adult daughters aged 23 and 19, and explained to them the history of International Women's Day and how it really matters, and how at their wonderful ages they can be trailblazers for us all, and for even future generations, if we can even think that far ahead. And I was talking to them really about my experience in the corporate world. So I've been a business owner for many years now, actually, since Georgina was born. So since she was for 19 years. But my real memories of that sort of visceral memory of experienced bias really goes back to those days where I worked in corporate America, predominantly the tech sector. So inevitably, interesting, I use the word inevitably, it was quite male dominated, or very male dominated. It's balancing a little bit more nowadays. But I remember the feelings of being almost pushed down, really not having some of the same opportunities, and with it not being desperately overt, but being quite subtle. That I was a lady on a sales team. I was the one expected to take the minutes perhaps in a meeting. I was the one whose voice was very rarely first, talking about I was a salesperson, I was contributing to the bottom line, in the early days. Very interesting. And then many more. I made a move into human resources and learning and development, which is where most of my world has been. And I recall many meetings, I will say many, there's plurals in here, when I was looking at talent in the business and succession planning. And many of my male leaders, I would say almost at a subconscious level, selecting men to be on the succession plan over the women. And some of the conversations that ensued, I don't believe they even realized what was leaving their mouth in terms of, well, she's topped out, or she's got a family, or she's of an age where she'll have some children in the future. I mean, fascinating if one can remove oneself from the emotion, but I still feel it, Joe. I still feel it, even now, all those many years later. And now it comes back to me with my female coaching clients, still having those conversations of glass ceiling, of being overturned from emotions, for promotions, confidence in the boardroom. It's interesting, it's appalling, and we need to take action.
We do, and obviously having this day today focused on it is so important, isn't it? So many points you raised there, Gill, that I'm sure others resonate with as well. But for me, the biggest point is the subconscious bias, and that I feel is actually our next challenge, because I think there's a conscious awareness of it, but it's the subconscious that needs to change, and primarily we're talking large corps, but not necessarily. So yeah, some really good points. And were any of those experiences particularly painful for you?
Oh yes, from a personal perspective, in fact I do believe that it helped to precipitate almost my move into HR and learning and development, because within that forum I could help people raise voices, help people gain of both genders, gain confidence to be able to feel they had a voice in a context, albeit it was in the business context. I was overturned for promotions, and very much I had a voice and demanded feedback, demanded reasons, and oftentimes it was skirted over. However, I was equally capable of gaining the job as the gentleman, and often I was the only female candidate. But the reasons given were certainly not, they didn't land in a way such that I felt comfortable with it being a totally fair reason. So yes, I felt it personally, viscerally, and I hope that I've brought my daughters and my son up in a way where their voices can be heard. I've certainly got a little pocket rocket of a middle child, my eldest daughter, who's making great strides now in her career. Very, very interesting. And it's so interesting now. My corporate world I left 19 years ago, and I still feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's changing, but it hasn't changed, has
Absolutely.
it? So, yeah, no, really powerful. And it is important that our children have that greater awareness. That really is quite key. Amazing, Gill. Just while I've got you, just give us a quick rundown of what your chapter's on in our beautiful book that will be coming out very shortly.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for involving me in this wonderful book, and alongside such other lovely, wonderful, inspiring authors. So my chapter's entitled The Ripple of Role Models, and which is really relevant today, female role models here on International Women's Day. I talk a lot about my grandmother, who as a widow, widowed when my father, as the older brother, was only 7 and his younger brother 5. She really was a trailblazer in terms of being a working mum and a role model, not just to our family. So it's all about role modeling and the small little changes that we can make by our role modeling, that ripple effect in other people's lives.
Absolutely, it's one of my favorite things. That absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Gill. It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I'm just going to let our beautiful author Asma Begum bring her into the stream because she's joined us. She's done the school run, talking about women juggling kids. She's done the school run, I know, bless you. So great to see you, Asma. Thanks for joining.
Morning. Thank you for having me on.
Morning, morning. Oh, really good to see you. So we're just going around as we were talking about the, obviously, break the bias, the focus of International Women's Day this year. I'm just going to ask Eva now to share with us experience of any bias and what happened. Yeah, just love to hear your experience, Eva.
I did experience bias in my entire life, especially being brought up in Hungary, where it's so much more visible that men are the crown of creation and women are kind of secondary, whatever they do. But what I really want to talk about is I came to the UK about 16 years ago, and I started my holistic healing business 11 years ago. And what I was experiencing, it was really difficult to be in an industry where I was a Reiki healer, I was a law of attraction coach, and whether it was men or women, they were looking at me already like, oh my God, she is a weird person, and what is she about? But what I didn't expect when I started networking and going to places where they had the small businesses, I talked to men who were supposed to give me advice and help, but the first thing I experienced was the power they wanted to show that they are more than I am. So this very person did say that he is a mathematician, he's coming from the logical world, and made me feel all the way along that whatever I say, whatever I do, I cannot be an equal with him. And this kind of bias is really very dangerous because it is eating away at your mindset. It is making you doubt yourself and feel like, oh my God, so am I really secondary here? And how am I going to break through this? Because it's a very masculine-driven society we live in. And especially in the holistic healing arena, we represent the softer side, the intuitive side. And I feel that lots of men who are in the position of power, they are threatened by this because they are not so attuned to this kind of quality. And I feel that we deserve a better treatment, at least an open-minded way to receive us, because we do deliver at least as much as our male equivalents, and it's just not on that we have to fight twice as hard to be accepted as anyone else. And it was many occasions where I was vetted to actually get into a networking circle because the person didn't feel comfortable with me. And it was a 45 minutes telephone interview just to get into the networking. And she accepted me at the end, and it was a she, but the bias came through my profession. And at the end I said, well, if this is what I need to fight through now, I don't want to be part of this circle. So bias is there in so many ways, whether it's the view of the world, whether it's men and women. And I hope we can break it. And I hope we can make a change in the world.
Yeah, oh, that's really valuable input, Eva. Thank you. And obviously that for women going into businesses, we're all entrepreneurs here. Asma's just launched her business as well. So it is tough. It's tough to get going, isn't it? And to get off that kind of that starting point. So you're thirsty and excited, but if you're coming up against those kind of those kind of, well, they're not blockages, are they? But they're just, it's difficulty, isn't it? And that's really tough to deal with because you just want to get going. I think sadly that there probably is, like you say, that there's an element of that sort of level of women needing to achieve way more than a man would. And that is still very, very across the board in too many societies and organizations. But interesting to hear you saying that about the well-being. Obviously, I'm, as you know, Ava, working mostly just with men now in well-being. And I must admit, I've I really think it's only because of my background and what I've done in the police and that enables me to be seen as professional.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that stems from that whole value and belief that professional has got letters after the name and means you've been to university. And that just isn't the case. And I think this is another bias that needs changing, is that professional, people, it's quite straightforward to get a degree. It's easy to get letters after your name. This is all, well, what I call 3D paradigm. It's all just nonsense, really, and it's valid, but it's all has its own place. But actually, professionalism is someone who is passionate, caring, committed, believing in themselves, trusting and taking their job seriously. That's professional, and that doesn't have letters after the name or years of spent at university. A bit like me getting drunk quite a lot. That's not what professional is, and I think this is another bias that needs to be changed, because I do feel women are impacted by this more greatly. I don't doubt men are too, but this academic professional bias, brilliant. And Eva, can you just? Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I do have a university degree too in economics. So I did have to use this many times when I was dealing with these kind of men, to start with, look, I am coming from somewhere which you might be able to accept, but I am now working in this area. So this is very sad that we need to prove it, that we are who we are. Sorry, this is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because ultimately, I mean, that kind of degree is incredibly hard to achieve. And obviously what you're doing now is not specifically related to that, but that says it all, doesn't it, that you felt the need to bring that in as a validation of how
Yes.
good you are at what you do. And that is definitely a bias that needs to be broken. Amazing, Eva. Thank you. And just to, while I'm talking to you, what's your chapter on? Just could you share with us? I'm very excited about
My chapter is Shine Your Unearthly Light, which is part of the story of my holistic journey and how I broke through this kind of bias, and helping others who feel like a black sheep or a weirdo to really get the courage to stand in their power and show who they truly are.
Brilliant. Oh, it's been such a joy. Tweaking the last bits of all the chapters now, as we get this beautiful book together, Women Leading in Our New World. I think it's a very, very important message to value who you are and to be happy in your uniqueness. So amazing. Thank you, Eva.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'd love to come along to Adelle now, who has had a busy night. So thank you for joining us. Adelle, what's your experience with bias?
So for me, I really want to break the bias around menopause. Conscious and unconscious bias. There is a perception of brain fog, fatigue, performance issues, and people assuming what menopause is. And absolutely, it can be really tough. But, people like myself and other women can show that you can be smarter, sassy, and stronger through it. Okay, so for me and Gill, I was smiling. Our paths are very similar. So 12 years ago now, I was in finance, in the boardroom, having a challenging time, and I would expect that. But Adelle, being resilient, this time just couldn't get back up, couldn't work out why, and had to take some time off. But, it was a breakdown. It was depression. Here's some antidepressants. I'm like, no. There's something more than this. So I took 4 months off to break the bias around a breakdown in the boardroom automatically means antidepressants. And I've never done what I was told, which in actual fact, at the age of 40 was a good thing to do, because nobody would have thought an early menopause at 40. And it was. And I didn't go back to finance. Guess what? I went back to HR and into policy. Yes, I know, because I can make more of a difference. And I didn't just tackle menopause. I was privileged to be part of a team that worked in diversity, inclusion, the whole lot. And I worked in that space for 12 years. And we have made a huge amount of progress. And I know that menopause is getting a lot of focus. But let's balance the the dark with the light side of menopause. So what I want to do as part of this book is show there is life beyond it. It can be challenging, but with the right support from everybody in your life, you really can be smart, sassy, and stronger, Jo. And I'm working with business women and corporate women that are commanding so much in the boardroom. And I've got the privilege of coaching them and sharing the story with their families and also the people that they work with. And together, for me, and government as well, we're doing a lot, as you know. I was there up in Parliament, and I'm talking to GPs as well. So we're just trying to break the bias. But for today, I want to show there is life after menopause.
Amazing. And I'd like to sort of pin that down a bit if I can, Adelle, because where do you feel the biggest bias against menopause is, or who and what roles do they play?
So for me, in workplaces, sometimes the bias might be around the woman's performance, rather than asking the questions. If you take somebody that's been a really good performer, absolutely where they need to be, then all of a sudden isn't, just ask the right questions rather than assuming there's a performance issue. I think, and we need to have brave conversations, but it's two elements. It's also saying to women, be brave and have those conversations with the line manager or somebody that you trust, which is what I try to do in HR, was to put the mechanisms in place. So it's a partnership. So, for women, it's having that conversation and not just assuming that menopause is brain fog, performance and memory loss and hot flushes. It's a whole lot more than that. So for me, that's the first thing to pin down, is that bias, that it's all mood swings, brain fog and hot flushes, because it's absolutely not.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry, I think someone's got some exterior noise going on. If anyone else heard that, or was that just? But no, brilliant, Adelle. Thank you. That's so key. So it's organisations, isn't it? It's management, recognising and actually really getting to grips with this is real. It can't be hidden away. And I don't believe, and I've gone full circle with this, but it's not about shame and blame. It's just recognition, isn't it? And acknowledgement, and then you can take action. But you've got to acknowledge it and recognise it first. So I'm really excited to hear your amazing work. So I think there is some noise coming through, isn't there? If you could all just check your noise levels at home. I think maybe there's something going on outside of someone's house. That's a bit like a Hoover or a lawnmower. I don't know. But okay. Yeah, if you could just put yourself on mute a second, then there's some. Is that? There we go. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think Jill, I think there was something going on outside of your home that you can't hear, but that we can hear. Our technology is so good, isn't it, of picking up all these the noise and the sounds of us. So fantastic. Well, Asma, thank you for coming in. And after, I was picturing you doing the school run this morning as quickly as you can. We've all been there, haven't we? Just doing that for, racing at 100 miles an hour. And Asma is, as I mentioned earlier, the founder of Soul Sisters Empowering People, the charity that this book will be supporting. I am blessed to be very grateful to be the patron and trustee. So I get to see behind the scenes of what Asma has achieved in pretty much 19 months, I think. It's remarkable. The Soul Sisters Empowering People supports women and men who have experienced domestic abuse, and supports them on all levels of the journey. And it never fails to amaze me what Asma and the charity creates and commits to. It is quite remarkable. So very, very grateful to have you here, Asma. Goodness me, I should imagine, well, I know you very well now, so I know you've suffered and experienced a lot of bias. What bias would you like to share with us this morning on this special day?
Hi everyone, it was really good listening to what everyone was saying, and I'm so glad I'm not first. I would have, sometimes you go blank when you think about things, and I think firstly for me, when I think of bias, it's the culture that I come from, which is Bangladeshi culture. So my parents are migrated from Bangladesh to Britain in the 70s. And as I'm the eldest of 4 siblings, and I think the bias where I noticed was boys don't need to do any housework. They get treated like royalty. Oh, you know, why would he throw the bin out? You know, no way. You don't ask your brother to throw the bin out. And, you know, it's okay if he leaves the plate. We'll pick it up after him. And me being the eldest, so my brother is second, and he was quite, you know, he was quite, obviously when you're little boys, he was quite naughty, and he was, you know, he would, so that would be my fault apparently. So it would be all my fault. It's my fault that he's naughty, you know. I'm the eldest, and why am I not, you know, showing him how to behave? But I was like, how old was I? I think I'm 5 years older than him. And yeah, so I was still a child myself, but yeah, I grew up with that belief that, you know, men don't need to do any housework. They don't throw the bin out because it's so embarrassing, apparently. And, you know, then I grew up, and yeah, and then it was things like being careful not to speak in front of your uncles and granddads, you know, like not going in front of them in the room, into the living room, like hide away. You don't get your voice, you don't shout. They shouldn't hear your voice. But one thing I will say in regards to that is I was quite lucky in a different way, where my dad encouraged me to actually go to university, do whatever subject I wanted. I remember him having this conversation, and he said, and I said to him, don't worry, Dad, I'll do something like what typically you expect a girl to do. And he's like, no, it's fine. If you want to go and do mechanics, engineering, whatever, go ahead, do it. I don't want you to think that you have to follow in everyone's footsteps. And I still remember this to date. My mum was like, she's 16, get her married. My dad was, no, let her have an education, because he came to the UK when he was 8. And he had to work straight away because he was the only one from his family. And my grandma said, you have to work because we need money. You know, they live in the village in Bangladesh, in Sylhet. So he had to work. He couldn't get an education, and he always regrets it to date. So he was like, no, because I know that when you have an education, you're valued, and, you know, you're listened to and you're heard. And I think the thing was as well, is if anything ever happened to my parents, then he knows I would be able to survive. You know, my siblings, we would be able to look after ourselves. So there was bias, but then there was that whole thing on my dad, who's a typical Bangladeshi Muslim man, telling me, go, you know, you're free to go and get an education. You can be friends with boys and girls. And my generation, that didn't happen a lot. So I was very lucky with my dad in that sense. And then I think, and that bias with my brother is still happening. I'm 38 years old, going to be 39 soon, and it's still happening with my 2 brothers. And you can't tell my mum anything else. It just isn't going to change. And, you know, but I have a son, so that's going to change. And it is, you know, I'm breaking that bias by not letting him, you know, it's fine if he offers, let me help you scramble the, you know, make the egg on the frying pan in the weekend. Let me help you get the washing out of the washing machine. So I feel like I'm breaking that bias slowly with him. He's only 5, going on 6. Well, going on 60 sometimes. But, you know, he's a beautiful little boy. And I think then after, there were biases at work, you know, when I tried to, I come from a corporate background, have a law degree, but there was just something about, no, you know, her ideas don't matter, or someone else, like the managers would take my idea forward. I'd have appraisals and they would say, did you do that? I thought I did it. And I'm literally sat there saying, no, do you remember that meeting? I sent you that email, the idea, it was my, no, you know, I had lots of problems like that. And then I think the biggest one was when I got married, this thing of, you know, you've got to be a good wife. And you know, you have to be able to cook, you have to be able to do the housework, you have to look after me, you're below me. So my husband and ex-husband and in-laws, they were all my perpetrators. And yeah, they were like, you don't have a voice. Who are you? You got a degree by look. You know, you just got it by look. Not that any of them have a degree or anything, but yeah, you got it by look. And yeah, I wasn't allowed to voice my opinion. If I did, then I was treated like a child. And if I didn't, then I was told that I'm an adult. I shouldn't be behaving like a child. And I broke that by when my son was born. I decided I'm not having any of this anymore. Like, I'm going to break that cycle of abuse. And I left with my son when he was 18 months, fled, and came to my parents. And again, that whole thing of, you're a Bangladeshi Muslim girl. My mum was saying you should go back. And I was ready for them to say, if you're not going to go back to him, we're not keeping you. I was ready to leave my family and live with my son alone somewhere. But I was very lucky. Again, guess who? My dad. He supported me. I mean, he does have some beliefs that still are things like, you should listen to your parents and get married in Bangladesh. He does have those ideas. However, I think my dad's a lot more forward thinking than my mum. He supported me. And it was because of his support, I stood my ground. So it's been 4 years. And I think I broke that bias. I'm still trying to break it. Perpetrator doesn't leave you alone. They try to get it back into your life, whether it's through courts and things like that. Also dealing with like mental health. My brother's got mental health problems, so trying to speak on his behalf for my parents' sake, because they can't speak and explain to the health professionals and things. That's another break in the bias. So break the bias, it can be a lot of different things. And I hope I've explained it well here, that I've tried to, and I still am trying to break this bias. And I can struggle sometimes explaining myself, but it's hard. But you've got to carry on. You have to carry on. You've got that word that Adelle used, resilient, I think is a big word. Definitely, I can, and then like the ladies like Joe and the ladies that are the trustees of charity, there was a struggle with that at one point. Again, I got support helping me, break that just because you're a victim. Well, I was a victim. Doesn't mean I can't create a charity. Doesn't mean I can't go ahead with it and make it successful, because, and we are doing it and still carrying on. I don't know. Is that okay, Joe?
Oh my gosh, there's loads there. There's a whole book there, Asma. A whole book on Break the Bias. And Adelle, I just realised I didn't ask you about your chapter, but I'll come back to you in a second. Asma, amazing. And what you've beautifully mentioned there is bias in families. And it's, we come from very different backgrounds, but I had the same conversation with my mother. She said, well, I know what he's done. And she said, oh, if he's done what he's done, I don't want to know what he's done, but you must stay with him anyway. So very different culture backgrounds. But I was expected to just let it all go and allow for it and stay with him because he was a man with a good job and a good house, a good big house, and all the rest of it. So very interesting that we're sort of finishing on the bias of families. But yeah, thank goodness for your dad, who was really happy to, really wanted that for you to strive and be your own person and do what you chose rather than what was expected. But it does. I still feel that in the home there are way too many biases, way too many women that have that Asma that weren't able, for many very good reasons, not to make that commitment to themselves and say, no, I am leaving. I will not put up with what I've put up with, and I want better for my children. Because ultimately, that's the outcome, isn't it? We're breaking the cycle so that our children don't experience that as the average family unit, so they can then move into a place of actually feeling like proper happiness in the home, rather than what could have been if we'd stayed with our exes. So amazing. Thank you so much. Asma, what you could write many books, and I pray that one day you will start writing lots of your own books as well. What is your chapter specifically on for the Women Leading book?
It's my story of how I looked back at how I led as a sibling. First of all, I think that's where that came from, being the eldest, and then I think my dad kind of gave me that importance of it's really you have to work hard, and money doesn't come easy. And I think I looked back at my life and thought, where did I start this leading, because you forget sometimes. And then I went on to things that I did at work, and just regards to being a mum, I think that's a big one. And then in regards to how being leading the charity, really, with the volunteers and the people that we support, and helping them now that they're now trying to do this, where they're starting their own enterprises. And I think I remember putting something in there about how I used to be second mum to my 2 younger siblings, but actually my sister's now leading the way, where I remember she just wasn't confident enough. So that's what my story is, I think, is about how I find it hard saying as well that, I'm leading, or I'm a leader. So yeah, that's my chapter.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And just, I mean, it's so many women in the last book had the same challenge. That part of the challenge of writing the chapter was actually saying, oh, I am a leader then, I suppose. That reluctance. And this is another bias we've got in ourselves. And I do think this is important to look within and say, actually, yes, I am leading my way, and I'm leading my life, and you are leading, the charity, and all of you here are leading, your work and your movement and your commitment to what you're doing as a sole purpose. And I think it's beautiful. So it's part of getting used to that, sort of like a new pair of shoes, isn't it? And also breaking that our own bias that actually women are as not, and it actually often said, better leaders than men. But we're not going to go down that road at the end of the call. Adelle, Martin, can you just confirm what your chapter is about, and just before we finish?
So for me, it's about leading through a new type of change. I'd spent my whole career being trained in change management and doing that. What nobody had told me is, as my career curve took off, my hormonal decline started, and I had the clash of the titans, as I call them. So for me, Jo, it's showing about leading through a new type of change. And just building on the point, women talk a lot about managing this and managing that. I say, no, we lead our families, we lead ourselves, and we lead our businesses. That is how we get time back and empowerment. So you're right, women automatically think about managing, and I say, no, we're leading. And that's why I've created my chapter. A bit of a play on words there, but leading through a new type of change, one I was not prepared for.
Absolutely. Such a beautiful, powerful point to end on, Adelle, really is. We are leading, and that is what you can do. If you're watching and still listening, thank you so much. Great to have you watching and listening live. And if you're watching and listening afterwards, then please reach out to any of us here, or reach out to me, and we can tell you more about what we're up to. The book will be out very soon if you'd like to be on the champions list. So we've got some book champions who will be reading our book the minute it's published, and doing those amazing reviews on, or hopefully they'll be amazing, doing the reviews on Amazon that will help us to expand the message and resonate it out across the world. So very excited to have you. Shame Teresa couldn't join us from Australia. I'm sure there's a very good reason. But Eva Hunt, thank you so much for joining us from Aylesbury. Lovely to see you. Gill McKay from Leaf Ealing, lovely to see you. Thank you. Asma from Rochdale, great to have you here. And Adelle, are you in Kent, or are you? Which one are you at the moment?
I'm in Kent. I'm in Kent today.
I thought you were. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming along this morning. And we would like to break the bias today. Thank you for being part of this. Whatever you're doing today, just question and question more, and find that resolution to speak up. And let's start creating the change that we deserve as women. Blessings to you all, and take care. Bye-bye.